Welcome to this little tutorial video where I'm going to show you how you can set up a character for the DragonGene motion capture tool. So for this example we'll simply recreate the DEMoCap character using the automatic human motion control for a simple start. So start first by adding a character, and let's call it example, for example. So first you have to set up the profile for the character, which simply indicates what model is used, what skin is used, and what rig is used. So let's start by first selecting some required resources. In this case, a model, a skin, a rig, and optionally an animation if you have one. And as next you can select the origin bone, which is going to be used to center or move the character to the center. This is useful if you want to use the animation later on in Blender or in a game engine, so you don't have to manually adjust. You can simply clear the rotation translation on this origin bone and you're all set. So you can move the navigation with the typical things: right mouse button, shift control, buttons to navigate, move, zoom. And if you're in the VR view, you can use instead these buttons here, which allow it to use in VR without having to use buttons, which you can't. So let's start by clicking on the origin bone. So if you have the focus on this widget, then you can simply hover over the bones to see which they are and select the origin bone. Or you can use it like the drop-down menu, how you want. As next, you have to select also the shoulder level. This indicates which height of the shoulder is used to match with the character. So simply click on the red arrow to move it up and down until it lines up more or less with the base of the shoulder buttons. Not the clavicle buttons, this is too high up, but the first arm button, this gives you the best matching if to scale the characters. Once done, you can save, so you have your profile. And now we need a configuration. Configuration simply allow you to have different setups for a character, for different situations, or to try to improve the precision of the capturing without destroying an existing profile. So let's call this also default or something like this. Then we are in this view. This is where the most configuration takes place. So let's start first with the first category. You have the name, the scale mode, which usually leave at actor, and you have the move for calibration. If you have set an animation, you can use the calibration move, and this simply is like the initial frame you use for the calibration purpose. So you can use whatever character you have, make one frame which is best for the calibration, which matches best, and this is simply used as base. Then we have the camera parameters. This is used so you can see as your character is. First you have to select which bone you want to attach the camera to. Moving a little bit to the middle. This would be in this case the head bone. And we can select the position where the camera will be. So in this case we'll put it a little bit in the front, somewhere more or less where your eyes of the character would be. It's also no problem if it's inside the model, as long as it's single-sided and can look outside. Important here is just the Z-axis, the blue arrow, has to point forward and the Y has to point upwards. So in this case this is a character which does not follow that well this convention, so you have to adjust a little bit to make it line up. And if you want to, you can also fine-tune the values here. In this case, the best values would be 90, 0, and 180. It's best to have this exactly line up, so you have your character where the camera is pointing along the blue arrow and the green arrow is pointing upwards. Then you have the slots. This indicates where you can put your VR devices, and you can set them up by hand, or the most simple one is to let yourself set up a typical constellation of trackers. I use now the 10 tracker setup, so we get a bunch of trackers which we usually have. Now we need to fine-tune them a little bit, so we start. So let's go with the HMD and click at it, then we see where it is located. This is usually not much of a problem, so we can leave it where it is. Only if this would be a problem you can adjust it. So let's start with the first one which is imported. That's, for example, the right hand controller. You see it, it's here outside. It's already matched to your actor. So let's a little bit down. Always first set the tracking position, because things like the index controllers, they have a little bit stupid offset, and with this you get the right offset for your device. If you have only a tracker or something else, you can fill it in. Then click on the target position, and now you have to set the target somewhere in the middle of the hand. So this is the best position. I move it a little bit here, somewhere in the middle of the hand, around here, a little bit back, so, and here, yeah, maybe a little bit up. You have to test which works best, but in the middle of the hand, pointing with the blue arrow outside and green arrow up is usually a good starting point. Now we can do the same for the left hand, and to make it a little bit more easier, start again with setting the offset, and you can simply mirror the position from the upside, so you don't have to do it twice. The elbows you can usually let it be where it is. You can adjust it if you want to, but it's only used as a guide, so it's not that important where it is located. The same goes for the knees. The red foot is the next one which is important. Here we have no need for an offset because we're usually using trackers. Let's move it a little bit here, and let's move it to the back of the foot, somewhere around here, more or less where you would expect the tracker to be attached, more or less. So that's fine too. And now we go for the left foot and we copy the position. So now we have set up the trackers. We can fine-tune if we want to, but that's usually enough. So we can start adding meat to it by adding the motion transfers. Motion transfers is where the fun starts. You add a motion transfer, which is a list, an ordered list, which is processed in the order they are defined. And we start with an automatic human because it is a good configuration start. You can always, after calibrating, decompose a transfer if you want to really go down and fine-tune. But usually it's enough to just use this one here. So select the necessary bones. So the head is obviously the head. For the chest one, use the bone where the arms are attached to. For the right hand, select the right hand bone. Same for the left hand. Hip is also rather clear. In this case, the hip is located here. Select the right foot. I use this one here, which is not toes. Same goes for this one here. And last but not least, you can select two moves. The first one is the base EK move. This one is an optional move which gives a starting position for a starting pose for the actor, which is not so straightened out but a little bit more angled. So the inverse kinematics has a chance to make a better solution, because it's not so easy for inverse kinematics to find a good solution if something is fully straight. And the next one is the crouch, which simply indicates or allows to set a move where the legs of the characters are fully retracted like he is crouching. This also gives the inverse kinematics a better chance to find a good pose. These two are optional, but I really recommend to use them. At this point, you could already stop and save. You would have already an actor which is working, and you can do captures with it. But maybe you want to also capture fingers. If you have an index controller, then we can add some fingers. Let's call them right fingers. And in this case, you would have to define where the fingers are. Pretty much the tip is the tip of the finger. In this case, we used the number 3, because the number 4 is this end bone, which you sometimes find in the Mixamo meshes. They are useless. So we start with the one behind the tip and we go to the base. So if you have these selected, you see it. Green is the opposite end of the chain, red is the selected bone, and everything that is yellow is part of the chain. So let's do the same for the others, always taking the 3, taking the base, taking the 3, the base, yep, exactly this one, again the 3, come on, base, pinky, and the base. Then we have to say which tracker slot. This is the right hand. And optionally we can say a move where we have an animation frame where the hand is closed. This makes it easier to have good looking closed hands instead of using automatic bending angles. That's also just a single frame animation. So with this we have the hand set up, and now basically we could go and do this for the other side. So we can say add transfer, another fingers, this time left, and we continue with the same. Let's do the thumb, the base, and the other fingers too. One more. So this one too, and the pinky for the end. Zack. Selecting the left hand, selecting the hands closed. In this case the animation is closed for both. And now we have set up a character which has the automatic human to do your typical, to do the complicated setup for doing the motion capture, and some additional motion transfer for the fingers if you have finger tracking on your controllers. So that's it, that's our basic character, and now we could use it. See you until next time.